We're a company called Komprise, and in this media and entertainment space, what we do is we help people create a more efficient infrastructure for all the movies and everything else that they make. So, and our whole goal is to drive down the cost of all of this storage that people are buying by combining with Cloudian to make a much richer, better, and cheaper environment. The problem that we're solving is that once people touch their data, they never touch it again. So this is basically our customers. We have about 120 customers representing around 200 petabytes of data. And you'll see that cold data, this is data that hasn't been touched in over a year. So it's a file, and you haven't clicked on it in over a year. In media and entertainment, 88% of the information in their infrastructure hasn't been touched for a year. And typically it stays on the most expensive storage infrastructure, because once you put something there, you really just don't move it. That's sort of the challenge. Inertia is what inertia is, and so stuff just sits where it was initially created, which is, by the way, typically the most expensive storage that they have in their infrastructure. So what can you do about that? That's what we do. Our whole goal is to take things that don't go together and make them so they go together. Like, this is a very expensive storage. Old data shouldn't be residing on very expensive storage. It should be on a storage that's right size to performance, right size to cost, and that's what we do with Cloudian. We help move information off of expensive storage to a better environment that's more durable and wicked fast, and do it so it doesn't impact an end user. So the reason people don't like moving information, the reason my wife hates when I move something in the house, she can't find it again. It wasn't where she put it last. Well, with Komprise, we don't change how a creative person sees their data. Wherever they had it before is wherever they have it now. Just in the background, we move it to a more redundant, a more resilient platform that frankly is way cheaper. And I'm going to say way cheaper a lot, and I don't mean it's like cheap, I just mean it's inexpensive. So we're more like a nice s'more. That's how well we go together. Perfectly well. So what Komprise does is we discover all your file environment. We allow you to look at it, and we give you all these wonderful reports on how to analyze what it is. And then you create policies which run what ifs on how can I make a more efficient environment. And typically what you do is you end up saying, so if I have a Cloudian and I wanted to move all of this file inventory over to the Cloudian, how much money would I save? And then you do, maybe I'll do files that are over 3 years old, files that are over 1 year old, maybe files for this particular project that I'm running. And you get all different ways to take a look at how you could save your company money. And then you create policies that do it, then you put an execute button. And in the background, everything magically, where's our magician, magically moves to a lower cost, more durable infrastructure. And life is great again. It frees up storage on your primary, your most expensive tier, and it makes it so you can do more interesting things with the rest of your storage. Any questions? That is a nice looking s'more. So here's an example of all the reports. Typically at this time I would go into like a demo of it, but we don't try to tell you how much money you're going to save. Over here we give you a calculator so you can say, how much is my current infrastructure costing me? How would my new Cloudian and Komprise infrastructure cost? Then we allow you to analyze all your usage, an example of how many files and how many files between 1 megabyte and 10 megabyte do I have in my environment? How much bigger, how much smaller, of what type, of what application, of what kind of end users? And then you build what we call plans. And a plan would be, I want to move everything that's over 1 year to all files over 1 year old to the Cloudian. Or maybe all of Sharon's files. I'll give you an example. I don't know if I can use them, but I will. AIG. AIG did an analysis of their environment and discovered that 12% of their data was associated with people who no longer work there. They called it zombie data. And they have a question of, why do I have all this information in my environment when nobody's here to use it? So we can give you insights on what is going on with your global file inventory, and then we allow you to make decisions on what's the best place to have a more effective infrastructure. And by the way, I love Cloudian. Speaks for itself. The whole goal is to put in Komprise. With Cloudian, you'll get an immediate ROI. You'll actually start saving money the day you put it in. I should probably just end it there because it's a really good story. But I won't end it there. Because the other thing about your production storage environment is not just the fact that you have data on your production system, but you have to back it up. And you have to, if you want to have a disaster recovery plan, then you have to, typically most people mirror it to another site. Well, if you have things that you haven't touched in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, if there is a disaster, do you really need that information? No. You just need the stuff that you need. So what our combined solution does is it allows you to move off all the stuff that's not active. You don't have to back it up anymore. You don't have to spend money for backup licenses, backup hardware, backup software. You don't have to DR it again, which is just usually mirroring it. And actually, it ends up not just lowering how much storage you have on your primary storage, but you can save 75 to 80% of your current ongoing costs just by tiering your storage with Komprise to Cloudian. It is just a massive ripple effect of savings, and it builds a more robust environment. Mileage may vary. I cannot tell you everybody's going to save 80%. I could probably have all my caveats right there. But I think, understanding that there's a lot of additional savings that come with our joint solution. Oh, I got plenty of time, 3 minutes. The other thing that we do is we allow our customers to migrate data from one platform to another. Many times you want to refresh your current infrastructure, and that is sometimes or oftentimes very, very difficult. With us, it's just a point and a click. You can. This is saying that we're moving. What are we moving? 62 terabytes, 784,000 directories, 8 million files. And we do it all in the background, and end users don't care, doesn't impact their existing life. We're just moving them to a more robust and a better infrastructure. I think this is almost the end now that I'm looking at it. So the use cases. So by the way, we work with file systems. So if you have file systems or multiple file systems in your environment, this is where we go together and we help optimize that infrastructure. We analyze your global file environment. We show you where you can save your money. Then we transparently move that data to the Cloudian platform. And we do it all either based on policies, or our end users came to us and said, hey, it's really nice that I can set a policy that says after 6 months move it, but I know my data better than you know your data. So when I'm done with a show, I'm done with the show. So when I'm done with the show, I'd like to push a button and then have all of that automatically archived for me. So we let you do it both with policies or through your own selection. Once it's on Cloudian, the magic actually happens because you have native access to all the files on the Cloudian, which means your tools can go directly to the Cloudian. We don't break up files or manipulate them in any way. They're accessible as if they were natively on your file server, or you can restore them back to your file server. But actually having them on the Cloudian gives you a lot of tools that you can use, like Elasticsearch, and Griffin and other tools that work perfectly with object storage, which I won't go into. And with Cloudian, we can actually tier and sub-tier with them. So that's where you can actually say, I want maybe 1 year of information at this tier, and I want anything over 1 year on a second or a tertiary tier. So it's actually very, very flexible for how you can move your storage. That's a lot of words. I'll let you read it. All right, talked about zombie files, talked about disaster recovery speed up, talked about deep archive, talked about project tiering, legal hold access. That was with a very litigious chip company who wanted to make sure they had all their assets locally, so in case they got sued. So they didn't want it on tape. We already talked about phenomenal analytics. And the one thing I want to talk about with this is that we're a vendor-neutral tool. So it doesn't matter what kind of file server you have in the front. It could be a Cumulo, it could be an Isilon, it could be a NetApp, it could be a Linux, it could be a GPS, it could be a Windows file service. We are vendor agnostic. We work with all of those. We're the only tool that works with all vendors. We also work with all object stores, but we particularly love Cloudian. We truly are the s'mores of the industry. We take disparate things, we make them even better. So with our grid, with Komprise, you get an environment that costs less, has more capabilities, that you don't need to train any of your end users to use because we don't change their view on how they access the data. We just deliver it in a more robust, lower cost environment.